Read it out there. Yeah, there we go. Nice. My bad. I'm using a different audio capture device, and that's probably why it's messed up. All right, well, let's try number 3. Okay, so I want to start off the stream kind of talking about map design in Splatoon 1 versus Splatoon 2, and the different approaches that developers have taken between the maps in Splat 1 versus Splat 2, and kind of why I think that we won't see a whole lot of returning maps in Splat 2. Like, Murray is probably going to be the exception, and maybe like 1 or 2 more is like extra maps later on. But overall, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot. So I'm going to start right off with a few Splatoon 1 maps, kind of talk about the general flow of them, and then move to some Splat 2 maps. Walleye Warehouse, I'm just going to start right off because it's one of, like, a lot of people's, like, this is like the final destination of Splat 1, and a lot of people consider it. So right off the bat, it's pretty easy to tell there's really 3 main ways to get out of your base. Straight through the middle, which is generally the riskiest, because you can be flanked from a lot of angles, and it's really hard to clear out this area here. And then going left is pretty much the safest, because you have the most options to get down, being able to go all the way around, or going through here, or even just like sprinting around through that way. And closed is the most limited, but it is also a good flanking path. But in general, you see that it's basically 3 ways, like 3 ways of getting out of the map. And then that's basically it. So let's take a look at another map. Let's say Camp Triggerfish, another one, like a lot of people's favorite. And it's really similar. It's, you know, one way with multiple options to get out, another more limited way, and then straight through the center, which is the riskiest, but also fastest to get into position. And it's a pretty similar, similar idea that you see throughout almost all of the maps, like Anchovy being one of the most options in the single one, but it's still kind of the same idea. One going that way, or going through the middle. So let's compare that to some of the Splat 2 maps. So right off the bat, you can see there's kind of a difference in the idea, where you're able to approach from multiple angles. You still have the, you know, big side pass, but they seem like they have much more options. You don't have like a limited way of getting out on all of them. Let's back up a couple seconds. You don't have a limited way of getting out on all of them. Like right here, you can get out at any point of this area, and you can get around even to the other side of the map, or on the side here. And then around the side here, you have a lot of high positions in which you can approach and get angles on the map, and get into a good power position pretty quickly on the right side of the map. And then just going through the center of the map, there's a lot of different angles you can drop down and approach that can't be camped quite as easily by one or two people. So in order to fully control an area, there's a ton of area you have to be able to control and cap and punish. So a smart team is going to have a much easier time getting out than they would in Splat 1. And I think that is a deliberate choice, because they realized in Splat 1 that invincibility specials, while very annoying, are necessary in order to deal with the limited options that you have in the maps. So without invincibility specials, you wouldn't be able to kind of strong arm your way into the map to like get some control and get a comeback going. So they changed the map design to kind of approach a wider method of approach, and they also widen most of the middles of the map. So it's easier to get, like, if you just go straight in, you can still go straight in, but you're still gonna be punished. So like, you can get in quickly, but to really approach the map in an intelligent way, you really need to go around the sides and affect it in more than one way. So let's take a look at another one of the maps. Let's see right here. So I think this is actually one of the earlier ones that they did when they kind of changed the way they were approaching it, because this one actually looks almost like a Splat 1 map with a few key changes. So again, we see two options for flanking pass. One looks very much weaker than the other. This one definitely doesn't look as strong as this one does, as far as being safely approaching. And then there's a ton of different approaches through the middle. The only reason I say this one's probably one of the weaker ones is because you still can, as the opposing team, can still kind of position right here and affect a very large portion of the enemy team's base and see almost every angle and affect all those angles at the same time. But it's also a very, very vulnerable position because it can be assaulted from all those angles at the same time. So it's going to be hard to control this area, but being able to control this area will mean you'll be able to lock the enemy out a lot easier. But yeah, so this map I think is probably the weakest of the ones I've seen so far, but it's still got some good merit to it. Let's take another look at another map. And I forget what this one's called, but this is another one of my favorites where there's just so many approach angles. Very safe ones and very risky ones, and all of them kind of have like their own use. Let me back up again. So this one's probably the one that looks like the spawns are the furthest away out of all the maps they've made so far, excluding Murray Towers, of course, because Murray Towers is just ridiculous. But getting out of spawn at all steps, there are many ways to approach an area. So, like, say the enemy's here, which they can get here. You can approach them from here, and from here to get them out of that spot. If they're almost at the cap point, you can approach them from here, and from here. There are many angles in which you can approach all those spots and get them out of there. And then there's lots of safe, out-of-the-way positions in order to get to a side of the map in order to assault from multiple angles. So you can have multiple people coming from the middle. I can't draw on this one, but you can have multiple people come from the middle and from the left at the same time and affect the map. And not be at a huge disadvantage without invincibilities. So it's definitely something I think is a smart design choice. And there's also another map I want to talk about, which I think is in the grand finals. I want to find Humpback Pump Track. That's this map. Here we go. So this one I think is my favorite that I've seen so far, because the center of the map is very powerful, but you can be approached from every side of the map. And there's lots of good ways for the enemy to get into those good sides of the map. And while you can probably see them coming, it's going to be hard to be able to influence them all at the same time. So you kind of have to commit to a certain setup and adapt that based on how you think the enemy is going to move. So being able to approach from multiple angles, like there does, like on this one especially, it doesn't really look like there's any one funneled approach method. Like if anything, this one's this thing right off of spawn is the closest thing to that. But yeah, being able to siege mid from any angle is really great. But yeah, because of this huge departure from, you know, a few options to approach mid in the design choice, I don't think we're going to see a lot of returning maps, because, I mean, just going through them, like, even here, there's only 3 ways to get to your side of the map, and then from your side of the map, there's only really 2 ways to get into the center of the map, which is extremely limited. And then Urchin's got 2 side paths, which are, you get 1 path to go that way, 1 path to go this way, and then you can kind of go through the middle here. And I think Urchin's actually one of the better ones for that, because at any point, there's 3 options. You can go left here. Like if you guys are stuck here, you can go left, you can go right, or you can go down. All right, now you've got your own court back. You can go right, you can go center, you can go here. Great. Well, let me clear this. All right, now you got your Tetris back. You can still go around this way if you want to, but you can also go this way, or in through closed. Like, Urchin's one of the better ones because you can mix up so many different approaches. But it's still really, really hard to get your hill back. Like, even with the options you have, it's really, really hard because the approaches you can take are very easy to be dealt with. Like, this is very easy to punish. The only way it works is when the enemy isn't aware of it. And if they're really good about it, you know, they can punish you every time. This is a little safer, but the enemy also can get in here. So because they can get in here, they can choke you right here, and you can't even get in there. So the real only option is to go through the center, which again means limited options. But before that, it's really good. It's just once it gets to that point, it gets a little choky and it's a little hard to deal with on Urchin. But I still think it's one of the better ones. Flounder is kind of a weird example because while there's a lot of ways to get to this part of the map, this part of the map is very vulnerable and is basically countered by anybody sitting just like in the top area. Like you can sit in those 3 positions and you can see that whole thing. So while you have multiple ways of approaching, because center is such a powerful position, these like multiple ways aren't as strong because it can be telegraphed. It's very easily telegraphed. So it's kind of limited too. And then what's an example of one that is a little more open? Mahi's a little rough, but once the water goes down, it's a little better. But I think in general, the maps in Splat 1 are very choke pointy and are forcing you to funnel down an area. Like Fort Mackerel forces you down like one of 3 lanes, or you can push multiple lanes, but it's still tight quarters. So like it just forces you to funnel down very small areas that are easy to be dealt with, and the only way to deal with them is with like invincibility specials. So the other point I want to make is a lot of maps coming out of spawn have like drop-offs, and obviously this is to prevent spawn camping, or at least make it a little more difficult to do. And in Splat 1, it really drove me nuts because coming out of spawn, those drop-offs are actually more of a hindrance than a help, because the opponent can kind of camp them with like a blaster, like a Luna, or anything that's really good at that kind of, you know, pouncing on people as they drop thing really effectively, and it's really hard to get them out of there without just throwing like a ton of bombs or having a blaster of your own. But with the new maps, which let me pop over back to here. Let's say we go to here. We still have these drop-offs, but it's a lot more of them, so it's harder to camp by 1 or 2 people. And we have all these new control sub-weapons, so Poison Mist, Point Sensor, and Autobomb, and, you know, some others, but those are like the main new ones. And they make it a lot harder to kind of sit in an area and like force and like punish people, because you can just get hit by this Poison Mist and now you can't actually go there. And that's a safe place for you to push with if you throw a mist there now. So it's gonna be a really hard thing for people to get used to, is being able to, like, in Splat 1 right now, it's actually really easy to control stuff. And the only thing that makes it hard is invincibility. And it's going to be really long, or it's going to take a lot of people a really long time to adapt to the fact that controlling the map is going to be a lot harder because the enemy has many more options, but also pushing out. It's like people aren't going to realize for a long time that you actually can push out now. Like, you don't have to have a special to make it happen. Because it just takes a little coordination to kind of make it work now. Anyway, I kind of like rambled because I didn't really write like a script or idea of this, but that's kind of what I wanted to get out of the map construction. So yeah, I think the general take from this is that the middle of the map is going to be where the focus is now, and rather than trying to choke somebody out of their spawn. And I definitely like that.